What's up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about my top 5 smartphones to pick up with a Snapdragon 855 chip in 2021. So these are the phones that I've been able to play around with. And first I want to talk about the Galaxy Note 10 here. So this is an awesome device. You can pick it up for around $350 to $400, or you can get the Note 10 Plus. I believe it's going to be like $50 more in the used refurbished marketplace. I really like the Note 10 for the size. It's kind of a more compact feel. If you have smaller hands on here, and the design is actually one of my favorite designs because the psychedelic sort of shifting color on here is really fun to shoot on, and also it's just an eye catcher when you take it out in public. So this phone has an aluminum frame on here and a glass back, IP68 dust and water resistant, and of course we have our stylus for navigating, and also if you're into drawing on your phone, this is definitely a great stylus for that. You do have a 6.3-inch dynamic AMOLED display, HDR10 plus, 1080p 401 for the PPI. Overall, it's a really nice display. You have a punch hole, very super thin bezels on here, so it's just a beautiful, very bright and vibrant looking display. You have Android 11 with One UI 3.1 with the Snapdragon 855 and Adreno 640. No SD card support, but you do have a 256 gigs of internal storage and 8 gigs of RAM on here. You also have really great sounding stereo speakers on here and no headphone jack as well. This phone also has NFC. You also have your Samsung desktop support, Samsung secure folder, so all the little extra features it is on this device here. So you do have your fingerprint scanner under the display that works perfectly fine, very fast, and you also have very good cameras on here. Triple camera setup, a 12 megapixel standard, a 12 megapixel telephoto, and a 16 megapixel ultra wide with 4K video, 30 or 60 FPS, along with a 10 megapixel selfie cam that shoots in 4K. Overall, I think you'll be really happy with the cameras. They've aged pretty well on this phone. They still take great shots. So this phone has a 3500 milliamp battery with 25 watt charging, along with 12 watt wireless charging and reverse wireless charging as well. So battery life on here, you're going to get kind of average battery life, around 5 to 6 hours of screen on time with this guy. So battery life overall is pretty decent on this device. Next, the LG V50. So you can actually find the Verizon version for around $200 now. That's extremely cheap for what you're getting with this phone. This phone still offers a lot. So you do have a aluminum frame, glass back on here, also IP68 dust and water resistant on here as well. You do have a 6.4-inch OLED display. It's HDR10 1440p display, 538 for the PPI. You have a notch on here as well, but overall the display is just super bright, super vibrant. Also, it is very sharp with that 2K resolution on here, so watching content on here is always a great experience. You do have Android 11 on here with the Snapdragon 855 and Adreno 640 on here. All of these phones are really great for gaming, so you can pretty much play games at the highest settings on pretty much all of these phones. Call of Duty, Fortnite, have gaming tests for all of these devices, so be sure to check that out. You do have on here the SD card support is on here, 128 gigs of internal storage is on here, 6 gigs of RAM is on here, but most importantly you have a 3.5mm headphone jack with a quad DAC. So anybody that's really serious about audio, you're definitely gonna like this phone. You also have some pretty decent sounding stereo speakers on here as well, and I think this phone still has pretty great cameras. A triple camera setup, a 12 megapixel standard, 12 megapixel telephoto, and a 16 megapixel ultra wide. You also get 4K video, and then you also get an 8 megapixel selfie with another 5 megapixel wide. So for people that like to take selfies in a group, this will be a great phone for that as well. That shoots in 1080p. And then the other additional features, you have a physical fingerprint scanner on here, as well as wireless charging, and you have NFC on board. This phone also has pretty good battery life with a 4000 milliamp battery with 18 watt charging as well. And so overall, the V50 is pretty solid. Battery life is pretty good, cameras are pretty good, but most importantly, you get a great screen in that quad DAC. Alright, so the Galaxy S10 is probably the best phone for the money right now. It's extremely cheap, and it really just gotten better with age, honestly. So you have a full glass and metal design on here, super premium. This phone is around 239 bucks. I picked mine up for, so very cheap. It's IP68 dust and water resistant as well. You also have a beautiful 6.1 inch dynamic AMOLED display at HDR10, and it's a 1440p display, 550 for the PPI. It has the punch hole, beautiful display, edge to edge screen on here. It is really nice, guys. So I really like the screen, and also I just like the compact sort of feel on this phone, it being kind of smaller for people with smaller hands. So you also have Android 11 on here with the Snapdragon 855 and Adreno 640, micro SD support, 128 gigs of internal storage, and 8 gigs of RAM on the base model. So you get tons of RAM. So this phone really flies through Android. Also, multitasking is really good on this device as well. So you do get on here a stereo speaker setup, which sounds really great, so I was really happy with that. You also get a 3.5mm headphone jack, and you also get NFC. A under the display fingerprint scanner is on here with Samsung desktop support as well, which is nice. The cameras on the S10 also have aged really well. A triple camera setup, a 12 megapixel standard, a 12 megapixel telephoto, and a 16 megapixel ultra wide. You also have 4K video, and then you have a 10 megapixel selfie cam that shoots in 4K. So you can see from the shots, you still get some excellent photos, and you'll get some pretty good video as well. So I was really happy with that. And remember, at this price point, these phones, all of these phones on this list, I think are going to do just as good, or if not better, than a lot of the budget, and in some cases some mid-rangers as well. So we do have a 3400 milliamp battery with 15-watt charging. You also have wireless charging on here and reverse wireless charging as well. So battery life overall is fine on here. Again, I was getting around 5 hours, 6 hours of screen on time depending on how you use it, but overall the S10 honestly is just excellent for the money. Now next is the Samsung Galaxy S10e, so basically like the S10 but smaller. So anybody that wants a compact phone, this is still my #1 pick in 2021. So this phone you can find even cheaper for around 200 bucks even, so very cheap these days. And again, the price to spec ratio is just awesome on this device. You get a full glass and metal design, and remember, it's compact, so it'll fit in your hand really well for people that want to use one-handed. It's IP68 dust and water resistant. You also have a dynamic AMOLED display, HDR10 at 5.8 inches. It's 1080p 438 for the PPI. Overall, still a great display. Gives out great colors, very bright, so zero issues honestly with the display here. It's running Android 11 with One UI. You also have the Snapdragon 855 and Adreno 640 on here. Again, check out those gaming tests, guys. This phone flies through pretty much anything, and also just navigating social media. It's still a very fast phone. All of these phones are. You also have micro SD support, 128 gigs of internal storage, and 6 gigs of RAM on here. You also have stereo speakers on here as well, which sound very loud, very crisp and clear. This phone also retains the headphone jack, and one of my favorite things about this phone is the fingerprint scanner is physical, but it's built into the power button. That's one of my favorite methods. I just think it's a very seamless experience. So I really like that. And also you have great cameras on here, pretty much identical to the S10, but with this one it's just a dual camera, a 12 megapixel standard and a 16 megapixel ultra wide. It shoots in 4K with a 10 megapixel selfie that shoots in 4K as well. So excellent image quality with the S10e for sure here. And also with this phone, you do get a Samsung desktop experience, which I was really happy with because they honestly could have left that off, but you do get that premium feature on here, which I like. This phone has NFC, it has wireless charging and reverse wireless charging as well. A 3100 milliamp battery. That's the only thing with this phone is battery life is just not, it's not great, but I would say you get around 4 hours of screen on time, which is what you would expect from a compact phone, honestly. So battery life isn't going to be, it's not going to give you that all day battery life, but if you can look past that and you want a compact phone, this is definitely a great one to consider. Next is the OnePlus 7 Pro. This is an awesome device and still my daily driver for those who don't know. So this one has a glass back and aluminum frame on here. So it actually does have a water resistance, just not an official rating. Now you do have on here a Fluid AMOLED 90Hz display at HDR10+. This is the only phone with a high refresh rate. You do have a 6.67-inch display with a 2K resolution with 516 for the PPI. Overall, a beautiful display, the best display on this list because it's edge to edge and you don't have any punch hole or any notch. So if you're really serious about watching content, watch a lot of movies, play a lot of games, pretty much doing anything, this is still to me one of the best displays that you can pick up at a great price. So this is running Android 11 with Oxygen OS, which is super clean. It's one of the reasons why I kept this phone for so long. Oxygen OS is very clean, very smooth. You do have the Snapdragon 855 and Adreno 640 on here, so performance is still pretty good. You have a 128 or a 256 gigabyte version of this phone, 6 or 8 gigs of RAM. So you do have on here as well. You do have stereo speakers which sound great, so no issues with that. This phone does not have a headphone jack, and like I said, it does not have any SD card support as well. So this phone does have a super fast under the display fingerprint sensor, and you can also use the pop-up cam for face unlock, which I really like. So the cameras on here, I would say probably if you were looking for the best camera on this list, I would probably go with one of the Galaxy phones. The OnePlus 7 Pro's camera is good for the casual shooter. You have a 48 megapixel standard, 8 megapixel telephoto, 16 megapixel ultra wide, 4K video. The pop-up cam is 16 megapixels. Like I said, as you can see from the shots, you can get pretty good shots in good lighting. But yeah, it's not going to be the best camera, but you can always throw Gcam on here and sort of get the kind of shot you want. So that's what I do. I just bounce back and forth. You do have a 4,000 milliamp battery with 30-watt charging on here. Battery life is no issue on here. This phone actually does a great job with battery life, and it charges still very fast as well. So that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.